How you doing?
Before I kick this video off, I want to clarify something I said in my previous Ahsoka video. I said I didn't want to cover Star Wars because I think it's crap. What I meant was Disney's Star Wars is crap. I grew up on the OT and prequels, and I've read some of the books. I love this universe, and hate what Disney has done to it. Theo, if you ever watch this, I apologize for the preamble, but I need to set the stage. Up until Andor, the only thing Disney has made that I enjoyed was Rogue One. I didn't think it was great by any means, but I thought Cassian was interesting, and they created the only character in Disney I've actually liked, up to that point, being K2SO.
Kate!
Goodbye!
I actually felt something when he died. I couldn't give less of a fuck about anyone from the sequel trilogy, but this snarky droid was really cool to me.
Would you like to know the probability of her using it against you? It's high.
Congratulations. You are being rescued.
Then of all things, Andor came along, and that show has absolutely no right to be as good as it is. With the sequel trilogy, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and Kenobi turning my rage against this universe into apathy, amongst other franchises trying to kill me. I let Andor come and go without giving a single shit. Fortunately, I heard a lot of YouTubers whose opinions on media I trust recommend this show with high praise, and I watched it. I'm still having a hard time believing that current Disney made this. Now with having watched Ahsoka, thoroughly hating it, and making a rage review of it, I had an idea for a series I want to do on this channel. A deep dive into each episode of Ahsoka and Andor, comparing their storytelling achievements, or lack thereof, rather than doing individual reviews of each show. To be fair to Ahsoka's runtime being almost 2 hours shorter than Andor's, I will be comparing them episode by episode, leaving the end of the comparison at Andor episode 8. I think this exercise will be helpful for me, and for anyone watching, to understand the difference in quality, and see what can be achieved when artists sneak into Disney HQ, as Mahler so elegantly put it. With all that said, since I'm the type of person that likes to take the bad news before the good news, let's talk about Ahsoka Episode 1. We start out with a title crawl that tells us Ahsoka has captured Morgan Elsbeth and learned of a secret map that leads to Thrawn. The return of Thrawn would start another war, so the plan is to get the map and stop that from happening. Our opening scene is a Republic ship traveling with the captured Morgan Elsbeth en route to her trial. Not sure why they aren't in hyperspace yet, but okay. They are surprised with an unexpected ship approaching them. They hail the ship, and the response is non-audio or video, but they claim to be Jedi with an old clearance code. The captain says he's calling their bluff and invites them on board.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
You suspect these random fuckers to be hostiles, and you're just like, let them on the ship. Go ahead, bring them on board. I want to meet them. What if they have a bomb? What if they have that ship filled to the brim with armed soldiers? What if they are force-powered baddies with red lightsabers? You are holding a high-value prisoner. You can't risk this. People been asking me if I'm retarded, and I haven't really had an answer. But yeah, I'm thinking I'm retarded. If you don't have the means of using your own boarding party, you could hold them at cannon point until another ship shows up with a boarding party. If they attack the boarding party, you just blast the ship and the show is over. Wow, we're off to a great start. Once the strangers board and approach the captain, you can at least see one lightsaber hilt hanging on the white-haired girl. And you don't suspect them to be Jedi, so what do you think they might be? Well, he didn't think about any of that, and decides to start insulting them, while standing within lightsaber range of them. Now, why in the hell would you start antagonizing them after letting them on your ship? You know, a better time to do this would have been while they were on their own ship. The obviously evilman tells the captain he'll show him his identification, which if you've ever seen anything before, you know a lightsaber is coming out. And then, well, yeah, white hair girl pulls out a red lightsaber, which means she's... Never saw that coming. White hair girl proceeds to fuck up everyone while Evilman uses the Force to keep Captain's gun in place before killing him. They free Morgan Elsbeth, and she tells Evilman that Ahsoka knows about Thrawn. Now from a storytelling perspective, this entire scenario is fucking lame. There was nothing interesting implemented in the writing to have the bad guys board the ship. They didn't have to subvert the security in any way or play a role as Jedi until the moment of attack. Nope. They're literally invited on board. The captain is clearly a mole who was planted there to allow them on because no commanding officer would make such a fucking stupid decision. I'm kidding. The writing for this scene is just piss. We are now with Ahsoka the Grey, tomb raiding, and it drags on for quite a while. I was already having vibes of,
it insists upon itself.
I sure hope we have time for this. She completes an Indiana Jones puzzle, grabs a metal testicle, and attempts to contact someone for extraction, but the reception is bad. Ahsoka jumps out of the tomb place and is confronted with 5 evil robots that want the treasure planet map. She drops back into the tomb place, which is a very far drop, by the way, and proceeds to use her lightsaber to cut circles around the robots, making them fall. I'm not sure how she's doing that, unless she is controlling the lightsabers with the Force. If that is the case, then she seems very adept at that trick. I can't wait to see her use it in future fight scenes because that skill seems very useful. The robots lose, so they initiate a self-destruct sequence, which takes a whopping 25 seconds to happen. The robot stupidly announces his self-destruction to allow Ahsoka enough time to escape. You know what movie came out a short time ago that did this better? The Predator didn't just look at Arnie and say, initiate self-destruct sequence. No, he just started pushing the buttons. Ahsoka doesn't look out of breath at all when she escapes, nor does she look like she gives a shit. Also, with an explosion of that size, were the baddies not worried that the map would be destroyed? The explosion is like a tactical nuke, which is absolute overkill. Don't you need it? Whatever. Ahsoka escapes the massive explosion by jumping on her ship, which is being flown by a droid named Huyang. Ahsoka gives the poor robot shit for being too far away to maintain communication, to which he responds he was following his programming and the Jedi Protocol.
Surprised face?
Why would Ahsoka give Huyang shit for doing something she would absolutely expect him to do? This clearly is not their first rodeo, but they're talking about Huyang not having her back when he's literally programmed to do what he did. You should not be surprised by his actions, Ahsoka. Seems a bit irrational. She says she didn't follow Jedi protocol to extract the information from Morgan Elsbeth, implying she is not above some forms of torture. So far, we know Ahsoka is a bit irrational and a bit gray. I wonder what they'll do for these little character beats later. Moving on to the next scene, Hera and Ahsoka spend a while talking about the opening attack and the map to Thrawn, which we just watched, so I'm glad we're spending screen time talking about what we just witnessed. I sure hope we have time for this. I get it. Ahsoka has to let Hera know what's going on. But are you telling me that this multi-billion-dollar corporation can't do this more expeditiously? They're also pausing for insane amounts of time in between each line. Make no mistake, this show is absolutely insisting upon itself at this point. This could be confused for generating some sort of tone, but they're literally just pausing for superficial dramatic effect. There is no subtext or anything interesting here. They bring up Ezra and are only saying exactly what they mean. If these scenes were full of fantastic dialogue, I could sit there and absorb all of it like a sponge. But this show is so hard to watch, because I watch a shit action scene, and now I'm watching 2 characters talk about that shit action scene. I already didn't like the action scene, so it's becoming doubly painful listening to them talk about it. I'm also not really finding out anything about their characters. The map is locked, and Huyang couldn't crack it, so Hera suggests Sabine could help her. I sure hope this Sabine is a fucking genius, because a droid couldn't figure it out. So now we get a scene with the Republic holding a ceremony to honor the fallen from the war, and specifically bring up Ezra, who sacrificed himself to liberate their world. He introduces Commander Sabine Wren to talk and honor the fallen. She is not here. This seems like the type of ceremony I would never miss. I sure hope she's held up because of some serious business. No relatable character would intentionally miss an event so important. We then cut to Sabine riding a speeder with rock music playing, and it's one of the cringiest things I think I've ever seen in my life. Or in a production taking itself as seriously as this one is. This intro was constructed to let the audience know how fucking cool Sabine is. What they don't realize is every action a character takes tells us a little bit about who they are. In the few seconds we've been introduced to Sabine, I've been shown that she's too self-centered to care about a ceremony for the fallen soldiers.
Well, you're missing the ceremony.
Oh, that was today.
Being there and speaking on behalf of her departed friend, amongst all the other people who sacrificed themselves for the war, is what any reasonable and good person would do. Choosing to have her no-show was an insanely stupid idea.
Good job.
So some low-level pilots are sent to retrieve her, and military structure doesn't work like this. These pilots order their commander...
Alright, look, Commander, I have my orders. I'm gonna need you to pull over.
Which in reality, they would be informing and fucking right off, unless they are some sort of military police. But I would never address my commander by their first name.
Sabine!
Like, hey bro, you gotta go do this thing, alright man? Let's go play some Call of Duty later after this. In all honesty, I've never seen a commander act anything like Sabine is in this scene here. Oh man, I hear the cops coming. Disney must know I'm talking crap about their TV show. Anyways, let's try to get this video done before they get here. She's supposed to be a commander, but the highest rank I could see somebody acting like this in reality would probably be a sergeant. But that shit would be getting fixed real quick. This whole highway sequence was absolute cringe. The scene where she decides to drop her speeder on the ground and slide underneath the spaceship. They tell her to stand down 3 or 4 times too many before she slides under the ship like a suicidal maniac. I also love how the highway just ends, just turns into sand. Like, why was the highway even there? Anyways, this young, selfish, and immature asshole is no commander. She acts like a fucking child. If I was her subordinate, I would submit some serious grievances to her commanding officer. I have all this, and she's barely spoken a word. She's impulsive, self-centered, emotional, and will absolutely get people killed in the line of duty if she hasn't already. Fuck off, show. We get to Sabine's apartment, and we get a shot of her Mando helmet. Through visual storytelling, we can see Sabine as a Mandalorian, and is sad as she plays a recording of Ezra. This is a strong example of some really bad exposition. Hey Sabine, we've been through a lot. Do you remember how we grew up together? All those times in the rebellion? You're not really family, but you're like a sister to me. When is the last time you've ever said to your friend, do you remember growing up together? This is like in Shang-Chi where Marvel's Kate T tells Sean that they've been best friends for X amount of years to stupidly tell us, the audience, that they've been best friends for X amount of years. You must now believe that these two characters really like each other, and we're clearly not creative enough to find a better way to do this. I wonder how Andor will handle introducing two characters that have a history together. Our next scene has the baddies standing around looking at the destruction of the 5 evil robots. Part of me wonders if Morgan Elsbeth is thinking, what the fuck did you guys do? Holy shit. Why did you blow up this whole place? We built this place. The Dathenheimer people. Like, what the shit are you doing? Anyways, again, they take quite a while to start talking. It insists upon itself. Then Morgan finally tells White Hair Girl, whose name is Shin, so I can stop calling her that. The temple was built by the witches of Dathenheimers, and Morgan is a witch. Or a survivor. I mean, she's both, so I don't know why she corrected her to say that, but, you know, really good writing. Balin and Morgan tell Shin to go to Lothal to find Sabine. We then cut back to Sabine, who is struggling to sleepy because she's upset. I have to add that her pretend sleeping and waking up was noticeably fake. I barely know this character, and my eyeballs and earballs are telling me she's a bad actress. She heads to see the mayor and Ahsoka, and the dialogue to follow is absolute cringe. You missed the ceremony. Oh, it slipped my mind. You were Miss Sabine. Everyone was there. Excuse me. Does he not know that she pulled some super dangerous bullshit stunt to evade the pilots trying to get her to come to the ceremony yesterday? You're telling me word of that insanity did not get back to this guy. Is this an actual military? She should get absolutely thrashed for this, but nah, it's okay. The ceremony was literally to honor the dead, but she didn't go because Ezra can't be there. You should have gone up there to talk to everyone about how awesome Ezra was. Old Superior Guy drops her bullshit immediately and tells Sabine she'll want to hear what Ahsoka has to say. We can't have character stuff here. We gotta get that plot going. Plot. Let's go, people. So, Ahsoka and Sabine's conversation start, and they stare at each other for quite a long time. Now, I'm not big on playing on my phone when I watch anything. If I'm taking the time to watch something, I usually give it 100% of my attention. Otherwise, I'll just go do something else. But this show tested me on that heavily. I looked away from the screen multiple times, wondering if I was still watching the show. I kind of forgot what I was doing. I'd look back, they're still staring at each other. I went and made my kids some eggs, came back, still staring. And then Ahsoka finally pulls the Nimbus out and says, "I think I know how to find Ezra." Followed up by even more staring. So, at this point, because it'd been a while, my kids were hungry again, so I went and got them a snack. And then I got back to the show, and I thought to myself, I sure hope we have time for all of these insignificant pauses. Now we're on Ahsoka's ship. While Sabine is sitting at the table looking at the map, she says, "No one would design a map you can't read." Thank you. That was incredibly insightful. The dialogue in this show is fucking top-notch. Speaking of top-notch dialogue, I like dialogue with subtext. Sabine asks Ahsoka where home is these days, to which Ahsoka says the ship serves her fine. Sabine then asks if she's tired of moving from place to place, and Ahsoka says she goes where she is needed. You see, the characters are saying one thing on the surface, but if you look underneath the text, you'll see that Sabine wants to know if Ahsoka is tired from moving place to place. Brilliant. Sabine asks Ahsoka if she can take the map to fucking think more clearly. There are literal Sith and witches after this thing, and you want to just go strolling around with it so you can clear your head.
Not a great plan.
Or from a writing perspective, this is just an insanely lazy way to get the metal testicle away from Ahsoka. Ahsoka says, "The map stays here," and then walks away, leaving Sabine alone with the map. So Sabine takes the map because of course she does. While that's happening, Ahsoka is checking with Huyang about the lightsabers, and she's kind of a dick to him even though he discovered one of the lightsabers belongs to a Jedi that disappeared after Order 66 named Baylan. First of all, good job, robot. Second of all, oh really? Another Jedi that survived Order 66. Disney is just firing out those survivors left and right, reducing the significance of the event, the same way they reduce the power of the Infinity Stones by shoving them in a drawer for a cheap joke. Ahsoka walks back into the main room to discover that an unaccompanied Sabine took the map. Good job leaving her with it by herself, Ahsoka, you fucking idiot. You guys apparently know each other really well. At least that's what you guys keep saying. You should have seen that coming. I barely know her and I knew she was going to take it. What do you have to say for yourself, Ahsoka? I barely know anything about these people and I fucking hate Sabine already. Ahsoka is now talking to Hera about Sabine taking the map instead of going and getting it. You know how important this thing is. Why the fuck are you not chasing her down right now? Hera has Sabine's back when she was completely reckless and stupid. I wonder if we'll discover if Hera is also reckless and stupid. I'm starting to notice a trend in this show. We see a thing happen, and then characters talk about that thing. And then another thing happens, and then characters take time to talk about that thing. Outside of pausing and staring, we get a lot of recaps on shit we just watched. This conversation shouldn't even be happening. Ahsoka should just go get the map because she's this super mega awesome powerful Jedi. She doesn't need to talk to Hera about this, just go fucking get it. I love the expository dialogue achieving one thing at a time. I left Anakin at the end of the Clone Wars, just like Sabine. The fuck are you talking about? I never saw you in episode 2 or 3. Anakin was always hanging out with Obi-Wan or shagging Padme. Ahsoka says, sometimes even the right reasons have the wrong consequences. A moment of silence for all of our collective brain cells. You know what quote I like that works better than this one?
Shit happens.
The dialogue Dave is writing in this show for these characters feels like that pseudo-intellectual person at the party that a lot of people think is a lot smarter than he is, but then you start talking to him, and he's using a lot of fluff words to try to sound smart, but he's just repeating himself over and over again, saying a lot, but accomplishing very little. Yes, Ahsoka, sometimes you do the right thing, and a bad thing happens to you. It doesn't always work out in the end. Shit happens. So we cut back to Sabine, and after some staring at the metal testicle, she realizes the answer to the puzzle is on the map of the temple and cracks the code. Are you shitting me? This map looks like you could figure it out on accident. The shape is literally on the temple hologram, but Huyang couldn't figure this out? He's a droid. This shit looks easier than a Rubik's Cube. Soon after this, Sabine gets attacked by some droids, and the bitch literally engages in hand-to-hand combat. Now, if I use my noggin and think back to a time when a certain cheeky Obi-Wan fought a robot helicopter, he tried kicking it, and it hurt really fucking bad. Sabine literally punches the robot in the face. Her hand should be broken. Droids, especially those built for combat, should be able to crush her windpipe in a second. This shouldn't be possible. The other robot takes the orb and fucks off. Sabine contacts Hu Yang for backup and takes a solid fucking minute to grab her lightsaber to pursue the robot. When the elevator opens up, Shin and the evil robot are just standing there, posing for her. What are you doing? Just leave. Why are you waiting for her to come down the elevator so you can... You don't need to fight this woman. You have what you want. Just go. The fuck are you doing? Leaving would have been the smart thing to do, but we don't do smart things here. We need our 1 to 2 fight scenes per episode, so people who hate Andor think this show is action-packed and not boring. I'll take banger dialogue over shit fight scenes any day, but hey, maybe this lightsaber choreography will be better than the sequels. Let's check it out. Enter our third fight scene of the episode, and third fight scene of the season. You think with Disney money they could hire competent choreographers, but lightsaber fight scenes have been absolute shite since they took over Star Wars. Some of the moves are pretty fucking cringe. They repeat the same twisty move like 3 times. I want to point out that Sabine has no force powers and Shin does. She could do any force move she wants to her and there would be no defense. A simple force push would absolutely fuck Sabine up.
She's dead! Died a horrible, painful death! Celebrate good times, come on!
If this show is supposed to save Star Wars, then they absolutely need to take lightsabers seriously again. Every single time a lightsaber got pulled out in the prequels and the OT, shit was going down. And ever since Disney got it, people are constantly surviving fatal lightsaber wounds for no reason. So if I am to go with that logic, after having watched Sabine get stabbed in the gut and have that super duper hot lightsaber just sitting there for a few seconds, then the only logical conclusion is that she's fucking dead. And thank God, because I hate this character. So the episode is finally over. I would like to say that watching this for a second time was not easy. My mind would constantly try to wander off, and I would have to rewind a bit because I'd remember I was supposed to be taking notes. Given the nature of this format, we will be coming back to Ahsoka after we are finished discussing the Andor episode. Okay, now let's move on to Andor episode 1, thank God. We open with Cassian walking on a bridge. You know when you start a show and there's a specific vibe? Like an actual tone or intentional cinematography. I'm not used to this from Star Wars. The last time I felt a specific tone was in Mando Season 1 during the first 7 minutes, when he was gonna arrest that guy.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
So as long as this show keeps up the vibe for a total of 8 minutes, we're looking at the best Star Wars show so far. With Disney's track record, I can expect the plot to fall to shit any minute now, so let's not get our hopes up too much. He arrives at a brothel, and 2 guys at the bar immediately give him a bit of crap. After his first conversation with the host there, we find out he's discreetly looking for his sister, and mentions the woman he's searching for is Kenari. The hostess tells Andor the guys making a fuss are 2 off-duty sentry guards, and they're acting a bit power-trippy and antagonistic towards Andor. They seem to get a bit of fun out of messing with people. Cassian finds out that his sister isn't there anymore. The host seems uneasy and eager to get away from Andor once she understands his intentions. It isn't just a straightforward conversation. He's actually smart enough to act like he's got a type for Kenari girls, instead of coming out with the info about his sister right away. Had his sister still worked there, he could have made contact with her without mentioning anything about himself to anyone. Cass leaves the brothel after finding out she's not there, and the camera is very focused on him. You start hearing the 2 sentries hollering after him, and he stops walking, but the camera stays focused on him. The actor for Cass is pretty good here. I'm not sure if he's selling this close-up scene better than other Star Wars shows, or if he's actually allowed the time and direction. I would say it's a bit of both. Most of the actors we get in the Star Wars universe, with Sabine being a recently notable exception, are great actors with terrible direction. Oh, what is this cause for concern? Act. Act.
Keep your lid on, Chop. Just ready a tracking device. And don't miss this time.
Could you look any more bored while this is happening? That ship should be tearing you to shreds. You can sort of sense a plan from the director. Scenes seem intentional. I'm excited to see if my piqued interest pays off. Anyways, I really like how the shot hangs on him when the sentries catch up and start pestering him. We can see his facial expressions with no distractions and start wondering what's going on in his head. The sentries want to scam him for money and say there is a fine for where he parked. He says he has 300 credits in his coat pocket. The guys are obviously being subversive, and Andor knows that. They tell Andor to pull the credits out, and he says he's not moving, which is understandable from their point of view, and very smart from ours. He has them come in for the credits to get them closer, allowing him to headbutt the first one and attack the second. Clearly competent and realistic. They have a gun on him, so closing the distance unassumingly is a great idea. Andor accidentally killed the first guy, so he has to kill the second guy or he's fucked.
He's not breathing. No. Below.
The guard realizes he is about to die, so he tries everything he can to convince him not to shoot.
You didn't mean it. He fell.
He starts saying plans of how they were all three messing around and it was an accident. Andor shoots him and leaves the planet.
What happened?
We're now on Ferrix, with a little droid making its way through town. Robot tries to wake up Cass, but Cass is dreaming about Kenari when he was a kid. It looks like a civilization of children for some reason, but a ship crash lands somewhat near them. The droid is old and worn down. He stutters a lot when talking and moves pretty slowly. Cassian won't tell the robot where he was last night, but he needs the robot to lie. And I like that he asks if the robot has adequate power reserves to tell a lie. It takes more mental concentration to lie than tell the truth, so it's a neat little detail added in this show. He asks for one lie and says, "Don't tell anybody you saw me. Don't tell anybody you know where I am." The robot pauses for a second and says, "That's 2 lies." I like that joke. Andor heads into town and the robot seems sad he can't hang with him. Next we see Cassian hanging outside of an industrial building. With bricks, damn it! Why are there bricks in Star Wars? When the doors open, a ton of people heading to work come out and grab their gloves to start the workday. Cass and his friends start a conversation that I really like. He asks him what he did last night, and the guy says he came by to check for Andor, and when he wasn't there, he went back home to go to sleep. Andor cuts in to say, "No, you came by for me, but I wasn't there. So you headed home and saw me at the hotel bridge. We were thirsty and decided to go to Kavos. I said I can't go because I owe too many people their money." His friend Brasso asks who's going to be asking. Then Cassian finishes the story by saying they finished a bottle of nag at Brasso's house and passed out. Brasso immediately starts adding his own spin to the story to make it more believable and to end it with Cass apologizing to him. 2 conversations happening at once. Pretty neat. I really like how they show us this isn't the first time this has happened with Cass without outwardly telling us. If Filoni had written it, Brasso would have said, "Cassian, you are always getting into trouble and I'm always having to lie for you." He would have started out annoyed and done it anyway to generate some lame conflict. Let us not forget how we are shown the previous friendship between Ezra and Sabine. "Sabine, we grew up together. And you're not really my sister, but it feels like it." This is a nice comparison with the Ezra and Sabine hologram memorytisms from Ahsoka Episode 1. Cassian and Brasso are friends, but they didn't have to outwardly say it. You can just take it in while they're talking to each other. This conversation successfully moves forward both character and plot, while the aforementioned scene in Ahsoka barely moves forward either of the two. We are now with a new character named Cyril after he submitted his report about the incident last night where 2 men were killed. His uniform is immaculately pressed and tailored, while his superior's uniform looks worn and wrinkly. He's what people in the military would call moto, because he is highly motivated and green while his superior has been around the block. He's done the job for a long time and he knows how to keep their sector under the radar of the Empire. He wants to keep life good, even if that means fudging reports and letting things slide. Cyril's superior notices how clean his uniform is. Cyril says, "2 men are dead, sir. If that's not worth standing up for, then I'm not worthy of wearing this uniform." Star Wars, what are you doing, buddy? This guy just cares about lost life and bringing the killer to justice? This is madness. He recognizes the 2 murdered sentries were doing a lot of stuff they aren't supposed to do, like being at a brothel that they aren't allowed at outright, and even adds that they can't afford that one. He knows they're scummy and possibly doing some under-the-table stuff for money. He even comments that he's surprised one of the guys wasn't killed years ago. He wants the story of their deaths to be inspiring in a mundane sort of way. They died helping someone. He's on his way to a regional Imperial command review where he has to report on their crime rates. I really like how this show is taking the time to make this world feel lived in. None of the other shows exist outside of the plot. When someone needs to be somewhere, they will just be there like a video game character. When we need a death scene to keep people invested, we'll create a character to have them die shortly after for the portrayal of superficial stakes. I wonder if the show will go a different direction in later episodes. We're seeing real people just doing their normal day-to-day in a huge world that barely knows they exist. I hope there is more of this as the show goes on. Superior Guy tells Cyril that the goal of their regional meetings is brevity. Keep the higher-ups in the Empire happy and out of Premor, and Premor will stay chill. He makes a subtle threat to his position, so keep the status quo or you'll be removed from duty. The fact that this scene is even in a Star Wars production blew me away. Wait, we're seeing the inner workings of Empire-related affairs? They aren't just cartoonishly evil villains? What are you doing, show? I can't express enough how surprised I was at this entire exchange. It's really nice to see that the Empire allows local governments to do their own business as long as they keep things running smoothly in the name of the Empire, and they won't intervene unless something catches their attention. I'm really looking forward to Cyril's story. Now we're back with Cass, who goes to visit Bix at her mechanic's shop to offload his best prize and get enough money to get off-world. The guy behind the counter tells Cass she's in the yard, and the shot hangs on him, staring at Cass for a brief moment. Not sure what the look means yet, but a fun detail. Bix is more concerned with wondering what he was doing last night. She's pretty hot-headed. I like her. Bix is a mechanic that has a side gig of moving illegal items through a contact of hers. She usually waits until there is quite a bit of stuff to move so the value is worth it. But she's pissed at Cassian for sitting on a very important and expensive item without telling her about it. It's his get-out-of-jail-free card. As we learned earlier, Cassian owes a lot of people money, and Bix, seeming close to Andor, and knowing this, you'd assume she's doubly pissed at him for having something so valuable when he owes so many people money. She's had the secret contact come in before, and he's never mentioned it. She said you've been holding out on me, and he said you've been skimming off the top. They're both a little wrong here, and it feels like a real conversation. The conversation is getting heated, and Guy from the counter came to ask a question about betting on something. Performances are really good in the little details. Bix's actress really looks like a pissed-off woman who was just abruptly stopped and had to act normal. I would know. I piss off my wife all the time. They have a serious I need help moment, and she comes through. She said she'll let the buyer know, and told him to clean his face. Brasso also mentioned he looked like shit earlier, so I like that everyone is giving him hell for being unkempt. We find out that the guy behind the counter is Bix's new boyfriend, and he tells Cass he's tired of her being upset and looks very annoyed. Cass blows him off and leaves. We're now in another flashback in the Canary place, and the kids are painting their faces. The boss girl stands up for young Cass. They don't speak English, and there's no subtitles. It's pretty neat. Wow, we're jumping to all kinds of locations. I'm so happy not to have seen Tatooine yet. Cyril meets with the guy who monitors the comings and goings of spaceships on the planet, and whether or not they came through the checkpoint. Unknown to him, Cassian hyperspaced out of there, and they want to find the ship. Cyril is very motivated, and the clerk couldn't give a shit less. He tells the clerk to figure it out, or someone else can have his chair. We're back on Ferrix again, and a guy stops Andor to ask him for money. There's a big alien standing behind Andor, and Andor immediately starts asking about why that alien is acting as his muscle, and is not taking it seriously at all. The alien said, "All he told me to do was stand here." I like this little joke. Bix leaves work for errands, but really to contact the buyer for Cass, and boyfriend follows her. He lost her because he sucks at this kind of stuff. She goes to a different shop, and they speak in code to get the contact thingy. Again, I'm loving the dialogue in this show so far. A lot of the conversations are very coded. They're now back on Premor, and again, holy shit. Regular people doing regular shit to keep the cog moving. One dude is grabbing a quick bite of blue noodles, while the girl asks if Cyril can even approve the overtime they've been working. They don't look at the camera and say, "Hello, viewer. We have been working overtime for our superior, Cyril, because he is a highly motivated individual looking for the murderer," like they would if Filoni had written this. From Searle's facial expressions and dialogue up until this point, he very specifically is searching for the man that killed the 2 Primor employees, and is also growing increasingly agitated at his employees' lack of motivation. What are you doing, Star Wars? Something so simple, yet something you haven't been able to do in any project outside of Rogue One, and that wasn't near as good as it is here. Maybe I'll talk about Rogue One someday. Searle wants to look into the Kenari mail on Ferrix. The people under him keep giving him pushback, until he yells a bit. The attitude there is very laissez-faire, and he is, like I said, very moto. They put a bulletin out on Ferrix, Kenari mail wanted for questioning, and flooded the channels. And he yells, "Let's go," when no one moves right away. I like it. You see, we get little bits of character sprinkled throughout this show. All of our main players have more characterization in one episode than an entire season of Ahsoka. We're back with Cass, and the guy he borrowed the ship from is annoyed at him for all his shenanigans. Andor tells him he's fixing a faulty mechanic on the ship, but what he's really doing is swapping out some part to make the ship untraceable to the incident he was involved with last night. The guy tells him to leave and will no longer be doing any favors. The show ends with a flashback on Kenari, and the kids heading to check out the crash site. Alright, now let's sum up what happened in Ahsoka and Andor. Ahsoka Episode 1 has the bad guys find a witch, Ahsoka finds a map, Sabine steals the map and gets killed, allowing the baddies to take the map because she was selfish and stupid. The map leads to Thrawn, who the good guys are trying to keep from returning, and Ezra should be somewhere around Thrawn, so this map might lead to him, maybe. The Republic people we've met so far seem stupid and incompetent. Our evil trio just seem ominous and... There was nothing of substance here, and a really bad start to a season. With the way the show is executed, the baddies should have never been able to free Morgan. They are only competent because the Republic is retarded. Ahsoka likes to stare at stuff and cross her arms. She has a shaky history with Sabine that we don't have much on yet. Actually, we don't have much on Ahsoka at all. Sabine is the most characterized character, and is a total fucking bitch. She's a self-centered asshole that no-shows a ceremony honoring the dead, because all she cares about is how she feels about Ezra being gone. She steals the fucking map, gets stabbed in the gut, dies, and gives the baddies the means to achieve their goals. We don't have much on Hera yet, but she's green and bland. Hu Yang is the best character so far. He found out the lightsaber belongs to a Jedi named Balin, and is the only character that is relatively competent. We are looking thin on plot, and despite all the time we spent with our main characters, staring and not saying much, we're looking super fucking thin on characters too. I don't know or care about any of the good guys, and I'm happy Sabine died after being a selfish asshole. And we get a couple bad action scenes. Alright, Ahsoka Episode 1. Looking really awesome. Now let's wash the taste of old lady dick out of our mouths and talk about Andor. Andor Episode 1, plot-wise, has our main character looking for his sister, and because of an unfortunate circumstance, killed 2 Empire-associated sentries. He is scrambling for the means of getting off Ferrix, while Primor Officer Searle is attempting to hunt him down. Alright, so the plot as it stands is not as grandiose as the return of Thrawn, and Sith and Jedi fighting each other, but rather a very focused story on certain individuals in a massive universe. Now let's talk about the characters. We have Andor. Despite any direct lines to imply these things, he is very competent in close quarters combat and a quick thinker. He is not necessarily anti-Empire, but he's definitely more of a rogue and a free thinker. He has a history of getting into trouble and owes a lot of people money. His current motivation is selling a high-value piece of equipment he stole to get off-world. He's very good friends with Barso, and there is an implication that he had a relationship with Bix in the past that her boyfriend isn't very chill with. Notice how much I was able to say about him compared to Ahsoka? Searle is a very green officer, akin to a second lieutenant. He's highly motivated and desperately trying to find out who the murderer is. He's annoyed with how lackadaisical Primor employees are, and is going against what his direct superior told him to do in efforts to bring the killer to justice. Bix is a mechanic who has a long history with Andor, which you're able to pick up on without her saying, "Hey Andor, we've been friends for 15 years, and you've always been a troublemaker." She's good at slipping through crowds and staying under the radar, and has a side hustle of selling illegal equipment, She, like most on Ferrix, are not pro-Empire at all. They don't do much to raise the alarm, but will capitalize on their stolen goods. So far, we have a show with a list of characters I either hate, don't know anything about, or am questionable on. We have a massive plot with potential world-ending stakes already being pushed forward by contrivances and nonsense. In Andor, we have a very focused plot that doesn't have to sacrifice anyone's intelligence to move the plot forward. We have an episode heavily dedicated to world building and character development. We have a few characters that we have quite a lot of information on, and they're very easy to be invested in. I may hate the Empire, but I'm actually connecting with Cyril as a small character in a huge cog. He's doing what he thinks is right, and even though he has ties to the Empire, he is solely motivated by the murder of 2 people and maintaining order. Like I've said, it's very obvious to me to point to which episode here is boring and which one is engaging. I'll take good dialogue between 2 friends discussing an alibi, or a young officer talking to his commander about the state of affairs, over boring-ass bland fight scenes any day of the week. So this episode's winner goes to Andor by a landslide. Thank you for coming by to check out my comparison of Andor Episode 1 and Ahsoka Episode 1. By the time you see this, I'll be working on the next thing. Take care.